evening, ladies and gentlemen. It is now round 4 out of 9 for Season 3 of the Sim Racing Hub International GT3 Sprint Championship. We are now in good old Catalonia at the Circuit de Catalunya Barcelona, based in the Montmeló region in Catalonia. My name's Alex Goldschmidt, back with you. Has it really been 2 weeks since the last time? And a very good evening to my co-commentator, my partner in crime, and also our cameraman this evening, Mr. Steve Proudby. Steve, how are you, my friend?
Yeah, I'm very well, thank you very much, Alex. It's good to be back, and it's exciting. Barcelona, it's a really, really good track. I think Barcelona, it's very, very fast flowing. It's going to be interesting. Is anybody going to be able to stop the man that is George Boothby in the SRHI GT3 Championship? Because so far so good for that driver. In the previous rounds, I think he's currently on top of the standings, and he seems to be a force to be reckoned with.
Well, things are about to get underway very, very shortly for the qualifying session here at the Circuit de Catalunya Barcelona. Without further ado, let's have a look at the points tallies. And that is, I'm just going to have a look at my own base side of things. George Boothby is actually leading the pro standings himself, and he's actually got 3 from 3. The British Leviathan, as I'm now going to nickname him, but also he's got quite a few other drivers that are getting into close competition. The likes of Niels van der Kerkelt, amongst others, have really, really shown that George Boothby, he might have 3 out of 3 so far, but things could change here at Barcelona. Then we have a look at the semi-pro division. In terms of how things are looking in that perspective, and it is Patrick Vance that is leading the way in terms of the overall standings so far. And Patrick Vance had a pretty disastrous race, let's be completely honest. He's on 55 points at the moment in the Lexus RCF GT3, but it's a very different kettle of fish here, Steve, in comparison with Silverstone a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, absolutely, and just apologies there because the points table on the website just weren't quite tallying up with what I was expecting to see on that one. So a bit of admin duties maybe to do behind the scenes for SRHI there. But yeah, it's going to be it's looking like a dry track again this evening, so it should be some good lights to flag racing with none of that wet stuff to balance the performance and the ability of some of the other drivers. But it's always good to see the guys really get their teeth into a good race with nothing really other than ability to hinder them, and it'll be interesting to just really see how they sort of fare against each other. As you say, it's a good track. It's going to be very interesting, and like I said on the build-up, I think George Boothby, he's going to be the man to beat tonight, and he's the man. Somebody needs to challenge him soon, otherwise it's going to be the George Boothby show from start to finish.
Well, Great Britain's has the same initials, doesn't it? GB, George Boothby, Great British, George Boothby Show. It doesn't really matter which way you put it. But just briefly running through the standings anyhow, which I've actually got on my screen at the moment. George Boothby actually leading the way on 104 points. There is the 105 points, a clear 20 points ahead of Niels van der Kerkelt, his buddy, Mr. 47 from the Netherlands, the Flying Dutchman, as I like to normally moniker him. Both just not just on here, but also on SimGrid as well, because Boothby and van der Kerkelt are actually ultra competitive in the Sprint Cup Season 3, amongst with other things. And obviously SimGrid going to town with the first round of the SimGrid World Cup this coming Thursday, powered by VCO, and I'm going to be on qualifying duty for that one. That's looking rather interesting. But then you look at, Marcel V rounds out the top 3, and he's 55 points behind. So it's only van der Kerkelt that at the moment is really starting to push. There's Dave Jr. from the USA in the Artworks number 10 Mercedes-Benz AMG GT3 Evo. And they're all going on a outlap at the moment ahead of their first flying attempt around the circuit here at the Barcelona circuit here in Spain. Patrick Vance leads in terms of the overall standings in the class. It looks like it's actually Tim Kroll who has had consistency. Patrick Vance had a race to forget at Silverstone. Jordi Barker is in there as well. Giorgio Raimondo rounding out the top 3. Well, there's so many different. I'm trying to have a look at all these points, and I'm getting confused because you see other people up and down the order, but it's going to be rather interesting here tonight, Steve. A very fast-flowing, but also very technical circuit. I mean, where we're actually seeing Boothby at the moment, he's going down through turn 5 into 6 and then the left at 7. These drivers are going to be really, really tested. And one of the people that is already starting to put their best foot forward looks to be the number 9. Well, so I say that, Nard Cox, and the number 35 goes top. Then Sem Spenkelink, a good old favourite here from Dark Sky Racing. And then Niels van der Kakelt jumps in with a 1 minute 43.665. This circuit, 2.905 miles. That is on the Grand Prix circuit from 2021. It was previously 2.892 miles, with Valtteri Bottas doing a 1 minute 18.1, but these lap times are not going to be rather reflective of what a Formula 1 car can do, but with good old GT3 machinery.
Absolutely, yeah, and we're just sticking with George Boothby at the minute because I get the feeling that he is the man that's going to set the benchmark. He is on a hot lap at the moment, but let's just see how that stacks up against the laps already set as he comes across the line now to finish his first flying lap, and indeed he goes second fastest. He's just 0.048 of a second off that provisional pole. Something tells me that was just a warm-up lap for George Boothby, Alex.
Yeah, but look at Marcel V going 48 thousandths quicker in one of the heaviest cars on the grid, and that is the Bentley Continental GT3 4-litre twin-turbo V8, front-engined, pushing out around about 550 brake horsepower, 680 newton meters of torque. It is one of the heaviest cars here, but it isn't the heaviest. The heaviest is actually the one that Sem Spenkelink from Dark Sky Racing is in at the moment, the number 64 Porsche. 4-litre flat 6 rear-engined. It's producing around 540 or so brake horsepower. But Marcel V putting in the initial benchmark. We've got just over 24 minutes of this session still to go. The sunshine out here in Catalonia as well, Steve. 27 degrees track temperature. And it looks like there is sunshine for miles here in Spain.
Well, definitely sunshine for Spenkelink there as he went into provisional pole by nearly 4/10 with a fantastic lap in the Porsche. But as I said earlier, I think they're all just getting a little bit warmed up now. They're getting rubber down on the track. The track is at optimum. It's a good track temperature as well of 27 degrees. So pretty good conditions for the guys to get some decent laps in. Seeing lots and lots of times going green at the minute. Lots of drivers 2 and 3/10 up on their times currently. So yeah, but Sem will be very, very happy with that lap because that Porsche, I mean, I think on a personal note, it's still one of my favourite cars within the sim, but it is a difficult car to get full power and full performance out of, to extract it, to get it up to that last 10/10 and really get those competitive times out. But Sem this season doing a pretty consistent job, definitely a top 10 contender. And the thing I like about Sem is he's a never give up attitude. We have seen him have a few incidents early on in the race, but he always gets his head down, gets back into the battle, and he's always there or thereabouts when the checkered flag falls.
Yeah, I still remember the time when he joined us in GT4 at SimSport Racing and decided to pick the very, very noble weapon, the Alpine A110 GT4. There's Simon Zimmerman in the number 21, another driver that we have seen up at the sharp end of the grid, currently running 8th position, and that is on a 1 minute 43.857, the Nissan Nismo GTR Nismo GT3, 3.8 litre twin turbo V8 pushing around about 585 brake horsepower, but actually has less torque than its brake horsepower equivalent of around about 550 newton meters. Top speed of getting about 3 kilometers shy of 280 kilometers an hour. But here at the circuit, as he's just made his way through, I think that was turn 3 he's just come through, Simon has been up the sharp end of the grid, but he's also had his fair share of dramas in this championship too.
Yeah, and he's another one with the never say die attitude because, you know, we've seen him sort of take different tactics, shall we say. Sometimes he's pitted a little bit earlier maybe, or gone a little bit longer sometimes, and we've sort of never quite known where he's going to shake out in the overall standings. But again, he's always there or thereabouts. He sticks with it, and I think he's very much a driver that gets faster as the race goes on. We've seen him come stronger towards the end of some of the races. Maybe he's a little bit better at looking after his tyres, or he's just better at driving on worn tyres than some of the other guys, but he's definitely always there at the end, and he's always one to watch for the pace when it gets towards the second half of the race. He seems to be able to consistently put those lap times in and really sort of put pressure on people. We've seen him have some great battles. I think Mazzano was a good one, where he was applying lots of pressure, and it paid off, and he gained quite a few positions there. But yeah, definitely another driver to watch throughout the race. Maybe not so much in qualifying. He'll get in that top 10, I think, hopefully. But I think his real strength is that never say die attitude and consistency in the race.
And that's one of the things you've got to have in a championship, because we know that it is a marathon, not a sprint. You try telling a racing driver, whether it be sim racing or otherwise, Steve, the red mist will still come down and they will still go toe-to-toe, mano a mano. And we've got Sebastian Sorrentino in the number 156 Ferrari 488 GT3 Evo. Another one of the cars in this field that actually pushes out around about 700 Newton meters of torque. We've had quite a few drivers actually opt to, well, they've had to sign out of this round, Cody Pride being one of them. Quite a few drivers as well, but we still have a pretty significant grid. We've got 45 drivers, as there is a yellow flag out on the circuit at the moment. Tim Neibauer and the Team Rocket, the Furious number 622 Audi. Now, he is one of the semi-pros, so Split One, which is being broadcasted live on YouTube and also on Twitch as well. And I think a couple of Facebook Live links to boot. Tim Neibauer, one of the many, because this was a 50-car split, if you will. A Split One, which was for pro and semi-pro, and then you've got AM, and then you've got the novice as well, down a little bit further down the order. But this, with 45 cars, Steve, here at Barcelona, it's not going to be an easy ride for anybody this evening, because they're all, seeing them go into turn one, going into Elf and then heading into the left-hander just afterwards. As we see Michael Hartmann in the 84 Audi currently rounding at the top 20. This is going to be I think the biggest test yet. We saw it in Misano, where you can have incidents at turn one at Variante del Parco, but here at Barcelona, it's very much the same thing, because it's like a right, a left, then it's a sweeping right-hander as Sorrentino comes around the final corner, as we've got just under 19 minutes in the session to go. He stays P19, was actually within a tenth of his best lap time so far. These drivers are going to be under the kibosh tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, it's interesting saying about turn one there. It's all about that braking point and just getting it perfect, so you can get that perfect turn into turn one. Now, on the first lap, obviously, you're going to have a whole horde of cars going into there, but I think Barcelona, it's got that escape route. There is an escape option if things start to go wrong or they look a bit dicey. You can cut the corner, and hopefully we can avoid any large incidents with a bit of sensible and thoughtful driving, shall we say. Get the thought process into gear and just back off, lift off, and straight line the corner if you need to, just to get through to the other side. But it's going to be difficult. It's going to be hotly contested. I mean, I'm expecting to see a couple of slipstream battles down that straight. It is just about long enough to definitely get alongside someone into the braking zone, and unless you have got that big power speed differential, it's difficult to completely overtake unless you get a really good drive out of that final corner, or the other car gets a very bad drive out. It's difficult to complete the pass before the braking zone, but we should see some heroes on the brakes tonight, I'm expecting, into that first turn, just to get the job done, because that's going to be the strongest overtaking point, I think. Maybe also down, into, you pronounce this better than me, Alex, but La Caxa, is it? The hairpin at the bottom of the back straight, I think. Lacaiza,
I think it is, or something like that. I'm not 100% sure myself, but interestingly enough, top 41 drivers, and that is rounded out by the number 13 of Simon Pike, covered by 2.1 seconds. That's how competitive this is. There's Niels van der Kekkel in the number 47, whereas George Boothby, who's currently rounding out the top four, exactly 0.444 seconds off of Sem Spenkelink. So at the moment, it is 4 different manufacturers in the top 5. Spenkelink still on provisional pole with just over half of the session to go, a 1 minute 42.975. The Porsche really showing its agility in the fast flowing corners here at Circuit de Catalunya, Barcelona. Obviously, the site of where Juan Pastor Maldonado in 2012 took the last recorded victory for Williams F1, and then promptly the garage went up in flames shortly after he was on the podium. The whole team was celebrating. But we will not have any virtual fires in the pit box this evening, I can guarantee you that much. But there's definitely going to be fireworks out on the circuit tonight, Steve.
Yeah, for sure, and it's I think it's worth mentioning as well. Obviously, I've been shouting about George Boothby tonight. Interesting to see he's down in 5th place. I do think he'll come out. I do think he'll maybe get a bit further forward than that. But I think George Boothby, worth mentioning, his first outing in the British SRO GT4 Championship on Sunday evening resulted in a GT4 class win for George. So. That shows you the caliber of driver that we've got here. That he can enter an event like that, and he came out on top up against some very, very stiff competition in a race around Snetterton on Sunday evening. So I expect George to come out, do some more laps, and maybe narrow that gap down. It's currently 4/10 off the current provisional pole of Spenklink, but it's unusual, isn't it, not to see Boothby fighting to be on that front row at the moment.
Well, speaking of that race evening, Aston Martin Vantage GT4, very much highlighter purple, so anyone could have seen that from a very, very high distance on Google Maps. But, came under a lot of fire. There were drivers like Niles Noyaux from G2 Esports. Niles runs the team, and obviously they're backed by BMW. You also had Jack McIntyre with Rocket Simsport, obviously... and Sancho Rocket Simsport in the Porsche, who was hounding Noyaux around Snetterton. But then obviously you had an absolutely brilliant scrap in GT3s with the real life racers such as Bobby Trunley from Team Brit, James Baldwin, who took the victory without any penalties. Have to give a big shout out to the commentators, Paul Jeffrey and David Addison. Obviously, David Addison, really, for those knowing about the British touring cars here in the United Kingdom, that man needs no introduction. A fantastic man in his own right. Very, very busy individual. And great to hear him. He's been doing a lot of sim racing commentary, like a lot of us real-life commentators, myself included, that have made the transition. And I must say, it's a welcome one, having now, what is it? It's getting up to a year, would you believe it, Steve, that I've been working in esports. I'm, working with quite a lot of people, including SimGrid, which I never thought in my wildest dreams would happen. And here I am doing a championship, being part of the SimGrid VCO World Cup. It starts in 2 days' time. I'm really, really looking forward to it, and it's such a bumper entry list. But of course, these drivers, they will have a really, really good chance of trying to do the best that they can. I mean, I'm just looking at the names like, Ross McGregor, Luca Burke, who won the opening round at Alton Park for the British GT SRO Esports Championship a couple of weeks ago. And I think they've got round 3 this coming week, which is at Brands Hatch. There's quite a few names on the entry list that I'm seeing for season 2 of the Sprint Cup, SimGrid World Cup powered by VCO. There is just so much talent. It's absolutely... I'm so glad I'm in the commentary box.
Yeah, absolutely, but I tell you what, Alex, it doesn't get much better than this for a Tuesday evening. SRHI GT3 around Barcelona. Spenklink hanging on to that pole position. Van der Kerkelt moves up into 2nd place now. You got Marcel in 3rd, Banny in 4th, Boothby 5th. All under half a second. Yeah. It's very, very tight. It's gonna get, I think it's gonna get even closer. Like I say, if I had to put money on anybody, I'd think I'd put some money on Boothby getting a little bit further up. James Warren seems to do well in qualifying. He's had a few unlucky outings in the races, never seems to really be able to sort of get that consistency which we've said is key. He seems to have a few issues here and there, gets caught up in a few battles. Always holds his own, but he's just, he's had a few rough ends of the stick, as it were. So we're in for some good racing tonight, and I think, for this evening, this is where it's at, and I think we're going to get some really good scraps up and down the field tonight. But I think you're looking at your top half dozen drivers now. Spenklink's got good qualifying tonight, good race pace. Van der Kerkelt, we know, has got good race pace. Marcel's always up there with the race. Banny, yeah, he's one that he'll be a top 10 definitely. definitely, and he's putting his stamping his authority down there in a good strong 4th place, only sort of 2.5 to 3/10 off the pole lap. And then the man that we keep talking about, Boothby, even if he doesn't get on that front row, I would still have him down as a man for the win this evening potentially.
I'm going to throw something into the mix. Keep your eyes on 6th position, the 127 McLaren 720S. Javier Goichea, Spanish, local territory for him. And there is the number 127. I think, you know, he's within 6.5 tenths. He's had big dramas, obviously, in the first 3 rounds of the championship. But when you get a Spaniard on home soil, he will know this track a bit like quite a few drivers from his native locality. You know, people like Miguel Molina, Fernando Alonso, Carlos Sainz Jr. To name, okay, people might be saying, why are you saying those names with Javi in that mix? Well, the thing is, they will have raced around these tracks, and this will probably be, you know, this is a home race for him, and he will want to do the virtual Spanish crowds all the best that he can, and I think he could mix. You know, I think he could mix in with George Boothby, Sam Spankelink, Niels van der Kegel, and the McLaren. You know, it's got the highest torque rating out of any of the vehicles. It's mid-engined, rear-wheel drive, that 4-litre twin-turbo M840 designation engine, as we now go on board with the number 127, who's driving with the Thunder Monkeys team. Now let's stay on board with a hot lap with Javi Goichea in the 127. He's still in P6. That was a 1:44.571. We'll actually take you on a designated hot lap as we go into the right-hander at turn 1 at Elf. Let the car drift in and allow it to carry it through. Double wave yellows, actually, as someone has... well, that's 2 cars. That was an Audi and a Lexus. So Javi would have actually had to have lifted off. At least he wouldn't be penalised. Now going through Renault on the run down to Repsol, appropriately under the Repsol bridge, trying to carry the speed through, but not trying to take too tight an apex, because you want the car to run to the left-hand side. Run it wide before the left-hander here at Sayat, as the McLaren just up ahead is definitely not hitting the apex well and true. Down the hill, through the left-hand sweeper, and then hard into the braking zone for the next left, which will be turn 7, Worth, and then through into turn 8. And then you have to go up the hill into the right-hander, which is literally on a crest here at Kamsa. And then all the way down to La Caixa, which is the next left-hander, before you get the real tight and technical section here at the Circuit de Barcelona, Catalunya, into the left-hander. And you can just see how tight he was running. He was actually down in first gear there, all the way down from 6th, all the way through to first, through into the Banc Sabadell corner. And then we've got a few more corners to go. The first one named after the rental car company Europe Car. And then we've got the Chicane RACC, which is actually the sporting organisation that governs all Spanish motorsport. And then through New Holland. So Javi Goichea from Thunder Monkeys now makes his way out of the final corner, up through to 4th gear, now pushing over 220 kilometres an hour as he goes over the line. That double wave yellow cost him, that was probably the best part of about 7 to 8 tenths of a second there, Steve. So Javi Goichea, okay, he's got less than 8 minutes to go in qualification. But being on the outside of row 3, or make that the inside of row 4, isn't going to be a bad thing, as Boothby is still in 5th place. You were spot on with your analysis there, Mr. Proudly, that Boothby would be going out again. And, you know, that car's looking rather rapid at the minute, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it makes sense to go out again, as for those people that aren't aware. Obviously, just like in the real world, the track evolves. The more laps the cars do, the more cars there are doing laps, the faster it evolves, the more grippier it gets, and obviously the faster the laps will get till it reaches literally 100% grip level. So George Booth is probably just been sat there in the pits waiting for guys to do a few more laps. He's come out now with just 7 minutes to go. He's probably got enough fuel in to keep circulating as he's actually diving in, so he's obviously spotted something's wrong with either tyre pressures or something's needs adjusting before he comes back out again. But basically he'll come back out, he'll have fuel in, and he will go till the checkered flag in qualifying. He will be back out. He'll have gone in to make some minor adjustment now. and it'll be tyre pressure. Something will have altered from the last time he was out. Whether the track's got grippier, it's putting more stress on the tyres, putting more heat in the tyres, and raising those all-important pressures. So yeah, expect to see George Boothby back out again, as you say, he's dropped down the order a little bit.
Yeah, that was a bit of a whoopsie going into the pit lane, because the car literally went sideways and the front end went into the right-hand barrier on the entrance into the pit lane. So obviously George not completely satisfied with how the car is actually running. And at the moment, Giorgio Raimondi in the number 58 is currently the fastest of the semi-pro drivers out there on the circuit. P5, and he's just over half a second behind Sam Spenkelink as Niels van der Kekelt. Let's stay with the 47 from the Netherlands at the moment. For those wondering what is happening on the SRHI TV schedule, well, next week we will have race 4 of season 2 of the GT4 Sprint Championship here on Sim Racing Hub International, as Steve will be joined by lead commentator Tim Fulbrook next week, and that will be Spa. The week after, we head to Zolder, myself and Steve, on the 13th of April. Before race 5, we'll also head to Zolder for the GT4s, and then there's a few weeks break before the GT3s head to Spa on the 4th of May. Then it's the 18th of May at Imola. The 15th of June for the penultimate round of season 3 for GT3, we'll head to Suzuka International Racing Course, and then the Hungaroring on the 29th of June will round out season 3. And then season 4, I have a bit of probably about a 2.5 month break until the 7th of September, when Autodromo Nazionale di Monza hosts round 1 of season 4 for the Sprint Championship. We've also got quite a few endurance racing races coming up. We've already had the 4 hours of Monza, the 24th of April, which will be not this week nor next week, but a couple of weeks later, the 24th of April will be the 8 hours of Kyalami. Then Mount Panorama will host its own version of the Liquid Moly 12 hours on the 5th of June. And then Imola, 25th of September. Paul Ricard will host the 6 hours or 1,000 kilometers on the 6th of November. And then there will be a 24 hours of Spa-Francorchamps, very much in the vein of the Total Spa-Francorchamps 24 hours that is normally hosted by SRO. Marcel V. Now, I mean, this is really, really close between the top 4 here, Steve. Just 0.186 separates 4th from pole position, and we've got 4 minutes on the clock remaining.
Yeah, Marcel was a 10th up. He's just lost a little bit coming through the last corner, so he may still improve slightly on this lap, but I'm not sure by how much if he does. And he stays in 4th place. But importantly, Boothby's got knocked down because Cox in the number 35 Porsche, he put a flying lap in, and he got within 1.5 tenths of Spenkelink on pole. So he put it up into 3rd place, which has pushed Marcel down, Banny down, and Boothby down as well. But Boothby, I believe, is now back out on track. This is his warm-up lap, this is his out lap, so expect to see him as he's coming through final couple of corners. He's going to go on to his flying lap, and we expect to see some fireworks. He's literally got time, I think, for a couple of laps potentially, so expect to see big things now. I think he might just jump up that as James Warren into 6th place pushes Boothby down to 7th, so he's falling down that leaderboard all the time, putting a little bit of pressure on himself. But I think Boothby's shown us that he can soak pressure up in previous races, and I think we expect to see an improvement now.
Seems like Javi Goichea has a bit of Spanish countryman representation and support this evening. Thank you. Muchas gracias, Sergio Romero. And also Tommy Arms is complimenting you on your camera work, Mr. Proudly. So a big thank you to him. Who is your money on for tonight? To the audience out there, don't forget, if you are watching on the YouTube channel, please don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and also hit the notification bell. You can also see just under the timing, the timer counting down, and also the server time. It's 2:27 p.m. and the track temperature hasn't really increased or decreased here at the Circuit de Catalunya Barcelona. Boothby now making his way through. That is through Campsa, which is turn 9, down the hill towards La Caixa. And this is where Boothby could really spring a surprise, Steve, because Sam Spenkelink is the only one out of the drivers that has actually made it under 1 minute 43.
Has George Boothby cut the track somewhere? Because he's split at the moment. He's showing that he's 2.9 seconds up. Have I missed something?
That's the definite track. That's the definite.
There's got to be a track cut
Max
somewhere.
Verstappen moment there. Definite Max Verstappen moment there. If anyone watched the Bahrain Grand Prix,
I think
if I've spoiled it for anyone, I'm not going to apologise.
I think because I think it was at the point where I was taking a bow after that nice comment about the camera work. I must have missed a track cut because there's no way he can be that much quicker. But yeah, definitely. He's putting the pressure on himself massively now, as this will pretty much nearly be his final chance at the bite of the apple, as it were, to try and get up further from 7th. Because, you know, as quick as you are, coming from 7th on the grid, you're just giving yourself a bit of work to do, and more importantly, you're risking a little bit of contact potentially in the opening laps when everyone's jostling for position, and carrying damage isn't always the most enjoyable experience around Barcelona.
Well, don't ask George Boothby about suffering damage, because obviously Sprint Cup Season 3 at Misano, which happened just the other week, he got a turnaround going after Corvone, but he knuckled down. And the thing is that that's what you need to do in this kind of situation. If you do suffer damage, okay, we've got a mandatory pit stop in this, which can be taken at, I think, pretty much any time. No, there are no mandatory pit stops. It's a 60-minute sprint race. My apologies there. I've commentated on so much on Assetto Corsa Competizione. I think my brain's gone doolally, Steve. But Boothby looking rather hot. Someone's gone very, very wide in the very deep purple McLaren that was just off of Kamsa. As here comes Boothby. He's going to try and see what he can do.
Yeah, it's 2/10, Alex.
Up
yeah.
at the moment.
He's toing and throwing between 2 and 3/10 at the moment. He has got time in hand. If he can carry that round, 3/10 isn't enough to get that pole position, but it's certainly enough potentially to get him on at least the second row, if not the front row as well with Spenkeling. But here he comes to complete the lap. He's currently carrying, agreeing at 2/10. And he must have dirtied. No, it must have been a dirty lap, Alex. It must have been a dirty lap.
Well, I did notice that going through into turn 1, he actually went very, very wide. And obviously you've got the marbles on the exit of the curbing there. As there's Marcel V. Checkered is out for the session.
2/10 up for Marcel.
Yeah, so Marcel already is doing a great job. He's 2/10 up. That is going to possibly put him on provisional pole. So the checkered has waved. Niels van der Kerkelt has called it a day, but Marcel V could be the dark horse here in one of the heaviest cars on the grid. And imagine if it was a Porsche and Bentley front row, whether it's pole or not. As here is Marcel V. He's just making his way through, and he's 2/10 up, as you said, Steve. This could be, and we've got only a couple of more corners to go through the chicane. Comes the 969 from the Netherlands, Marcel V. 4th at the moment, just over a 10.5 down off of Sem Spenkeling.
Oh, I think he's lost
lets the car drift out. Oh my goodness me, what's happened here? No, yes, best lap, but not enough. He doesn't improve. And Nard Cox takes 3rd position, but Sem Spenkeling, wow, that was an epic lap. And that stayed for pretty much the remainder of the session as we say good evening to good old Pinchy. Good evening, Chris Pinchbeck, doing some great work at Mount Panorama on World Pro Racing, as did Dean Riley, who won that race, a 2-hour encounter, which I just so happened to be on commentary for. But yeah, what a lap from Sem Spenkeling. He's put the warning shot across the bow, and I think Boothby knows it, because this is going to be rather interesting tonight. A 60-minute sprint race here at Barcelona. I think there's going to be no quarter given whatsoever.
No, absolutely not. I mean, you know, what makes that lap even more impressive from Sem is obviously how early he did it in that half-an-hour qualifying session. I think it was in the first 10 minutes, correct me if I'm wrong, Alex, but I think it was in the first 10 minutes or so. For the final 20 minutes, as that grip was increasing, nobody, you know, I won't say nobody came close, but nobody got within a tenth of it. And on the racetrack, a tenth is a big margin. So, you know, kudos to Sem. He did the hard work. The Porsche is usually pretty good off the line. Obviously a rolling start tonight, so if he can get a good start, the Porsche isn't the quickest in a straight line, but we could see him defending hard into turn 1 if he can just get that power down and maintain the advantage and just fight in the braking zone for turn 1. We might see Sem carry that lead through the first few corners, and Van der Kerkelt obviously will be racing very hard in the Ferrari to push him, but then we've got Cox and Marcel V on the second row. We've got Banny and Warren on the third row. Boothby, 4th row. That's all I'm going to say about that, Alex. I'm shocked.
But there is a grid list to go through, and I'm going to take you all through it. We've got a minute and a half before the full formation lap here at the 2.892 mile, 4.655 circuit, 16 turns in total. So for round 4 of 9 of season 3 here on Sim Racing Hub International TV, Sem Spenkelink starts on pole position, the first one for the Porsche this season, and it is a Porsche Ferrari front row, as Spenkelink is joined by countryman in the number 47 Ferrari 488, Niels van der Kerkelt, Nard Cox, and Marcel V round out the top 2 rows. Then it is the McLaren of Clay Barney and the Ferrari of James Warren. George Boothby will be on the inside of row 4 and has the semi-pro pole position holder of Giorgio Raimondi alongside him in the number 58 Audi. Then it is Dan Lenson and Javi Goichea who round out the top 10. Really good effort there from Goichea, and I'm hoping for good things for the Spaniard tonight. Sixth row. In 11th position will be Arvin Nam in the number 5 Lamborghini Huracan GT3. Koen Septer in the 32 Audi rounds out that row. Christian Malsharek, who is also a real-life racer, he's running in the 46 Ferrari, and he's got SRHI's very own Aaron van Drooinen alongside him in the number 24 Mercedes, actually the highest placed Mercedes out of the entire field. It's Michiel Hartmann in the 84 Audi, Tim Muris in the number 9 Honda NSX, Simon Zimmerman in the number 21 Nissan. Will have the USA's Dave Jr. in the number 10 Mercedes alongside row 10, and completing the top 20 as they start getting the formation lap underway, courtesy of Sem Spenkelink, Bart Sverink and Matas Marques in a pair of Lexuses that round out the top 20. Piet Vanier in the 34 Audi, Martin van der Kraan in the number 253 Mercedes, Tim Nijboer in the number 622 Audi, the number 90 Ferrari of Klaas Vester, who's switched from Lexus machinery, it looks like. Wesley Janster in the number 18 McLaren, Yannick Valenduk in the number 301 Lamborghini, Sebastian Sorrentino in the 156 Ferrari. Then it is Zander Vale, Simon Pike, Benjamin Simmers, Pascal Visa, Joris Evelins, Dimitri Schenk. And we've got Patrick Vance. Well, it is Patrick Vance down in 34th. My apologies, Patrick, because I saw a Vance and then I saw, no, that's not Patrick. He's a bit further down the order, down in 34th. Anthony Terhorst, who is getting back to racing in, the appropriately number 69. I wonder where that one came from, Anthony. In the Mercedes. Then we got Jordi Barker in the number 99 Lexus. Tom van der Meer in the 888. Demian de Keizer in the 15 Lexus. Chris Hill in the number 7 Honda. Ron Uzerif in the number 3 Audi. Sebastian Slapek in the number 747 Ferrari. Bas van Melis in the number 11 Lexus. Patrick Treffers in the 313 Nissan. And rounding out the 44 strong drivers, it is Frans van der Linden in the 65 Lexus. 44 cars here. I think it's going to be rather cagey going into turn 1, Steve.
Absolutely, and just looking in the chat, Tim Kroll, sorry mate, he's suffered a disconnect. That is heartbreaking. It is the worst. That is the worst thing to happen. But apologies. There's nothing that can be done about it. It is just one of those things. But yeah, heartbreaking for Tim there. And we know Tim Kroll is one of the front runners. He's a very quick guy. So it's really, really sad to see him out there. But Chris Pinchbeck says he's going to put 20 quid on Boothby. Well, I'm not going to bet against him, to be honest, Alex. George is not out of this one very much. He's at the right end of the grid, and we know he's a talent.
Chris, we know that your odds are definitely not favourable in getting more than 20 quid by the end of this race, my good friend.
He might just about get his money back. I think he'll be on evens for that.
He'll break even. He'll get. I think odds are evens on that one, Chris Pinchbeck. But it is going to be rather interesting. And I'm really impressed with Giorgio Raimondi, coming out of, being in semi-pro. I think that people might be saying, what is this guy doing in semi-pro? He needs to be in pro for season 4. Well, that's down to SRHI. So top 10, it's Spenkelink, Van der Kerkelt, Cox, Marcel V, Barney, Warren, Boothby, Raimondi, who is the semi-pro favourite at the moment, rounding out the top 8 ahead of Lenson and Goichea, the local hero. And this is where things get interesting. Track temperature 27 degrees. Track is at optimum grip levels and running here at the 4th round out of 9 for Season 3 GT3 as Sim Racing Hub International is green and they floor the throttles on their way down to turn 1. Spenkelink getting the nose ahead of Van der Kerkhout as they go into the right-hander at L for the first time. Boothby looking rather menacing, but it looks like Raymondi's trying to go around the outside and he's getting it there or thereabouts. Goichea's got the likes of Nam, Septa, Malschreckers. Oh, there's been a massive moment. Marcel V involved.
I think that was Cox as well.
35 of, Nard Cox. So I think there might have been a little bit of contact there between the two of them. Several drive-throughs. I count 5 of them. So there has been massive drama. So Marcel V on the back foot already. But this time around, what that has meant is that George Boothby now up into 5th position, having started in 7th place. But the hunt begins because it's the 2 Flying Dutchmen at the front of the field. It is Sem Spenkelink and Niels van der Kerkhout. James Warren rounds out the top 3 ahead of played Barney George Boothby. Giorgio Raimondi has an absolutely storming start. He's followed behind Boothby and is currently leading. Zander Vale is now 2nd in the Pro-Am class, and he's down in 16th ahead of Joris Evelins. Michiel Hutman, who qualified in 15th position, has dropped 3 positions down to 18th on the road, but 4th in the class. Anthony Terhorst looks to have got a drive-through penalty from the system software, and that will be normally after the start. That will be for being out of position on the rolling start phase. And we're over a minute and a half in. We're about to complete the first lap, but that was drama there for Marcel V and Nard Cox there, Steve.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolute drama, and drama for all those guys with drive-throughs as well. Must have just been a little bit ambitious with the loud pedal before the lights went green, maybe, not quite sure, or out of position, but that's a lot of drive-throughs for the start of the race, and that's really going to shake things up in the mid-pack. But it's good to see Sem's managed to hang on to that lead, and he's going to make that Porsche even wider than it is in reality now, and try and keep Van der Kerkhout behind. All the time Boothby has made up those easy 2 positions with Cox and Marcel taking each other out. Whatever happened there, not quite sure, but Boothby up to 5th, and he's going to be putting pressure on Banny and Warren. James Warren having a fantastic start to the race, up into 3rd place as well, taking advantage of those 2 positions gained through the spin. But yeah, absolutely fantastic. We are now set up for a classic battle now. As we can see, we've got 2, 4, 5 cars there, all in close proximity of each other, and this is going to get very interesting and very, very spicy very, very soon.
You know what? One of the other recipients, the Spanish hero Javi Goichea, in the pit lane, as is Marcel V. I think they're just about to come out of the pits, and so Marcel V having an absolute mare, and so is Javi Goichea. I think there's 3 karts in the pits. One of them is Pascal Visa, and I think there's a few others. I'm just having a look at the live timing. Yeah, it's Zander Vale. Marcel V at the moment is probably a lot further down than he would like, but it's going to be, I think, possibly a top gear from the rear from that Bentley, because effectively we know how quick Marcel V can be in that Bentley when he's absolutely on fire. But I think really this is going to be a very tall order. But the thing is, we've got 56 minutes still to go, Steve. It's anyone's guess, as we now have another car coming out of the pit lane. That will be Pascal Visa. And I would think that Javi Goichea's run on home soil has come to a rather abrupt end, because there must be an absolute Herculean amount of damage, as Anthony Terhorst now serves his drive-through penalty. Multiple drivers being compromised because of being out of position. And that's one thing you don't want to do at the start phase.
No, absolutely not. You're putting yourself on that back foot right from the off, but on the other side of the coin, flip the coin, and you've got 55 minutes to put it all right and take advantage of other mistakes from other people now. But interestingly now, Kerkhout is getting up to speed. He's starting to close the gap. I mean, there was never really much of a gap, more than half a second there, but now it's down to 2/10. Spenkelink will be able to feel him breathing down his neck right now. Boothby further back, I was just watching them come down the straight, and that McLaren is going to be difficult for Boothby to get past in a straight line. As we can see, in fact, Banny putting pressure on Warren now as they're coming into the braking zone and looking like he was going to try and make a move. And in fact, he has got that move done, which is opening the door also for Boothby, but Boothby's not going to be able to get through there. But that McLaren, yeah, down the straight, it was a bit of a missile in a straight line, and the Ferrari, even though it was in the slipstream, was falling back from it. So that might be a difficult job for Boothby to get past. But first of all, now he's got Warren to get past.
Marcel V is, I think, a confirmed retirement. He hasn't emerged out of the pits after that substantial amount of damage. I think he's done an RTG, gone back to the garage. That Bentley is still sitting in the pit lane, and that really puts it to jeopardy any possibility of a championship assault this season. As Barney being hounded, well, he managed to get past Warren in the number 1 with Boothby. I think what Boothby needs to do, he doesn't, we all know, how exuberant Boothby can get on his Twitch stream, because he will be streaming right now, I can guarantee that much, with some very choice colloquial language. But, we've seen it before. He doesn't need to push like crazy. He just needs to play the strategy cool, as we've got an absolute contretemps. This is 3 abreast. And that is Dave Jr. He's trying to go out around the outside of Yannick Valenduk. And then you've got Michiel Hartmann, who's now back into second. Patrick Vance in the 777 has a little tangle with him. Oh my goodness me. Patrick Vance was very, very close there. As then you've got Zimmers in the 236, Vanya in the 34 Audi, Tim Muris not too far behind in the number 9 Honda. And that's with the Dynamic Motorsports B crew. Patrick Vance looking to get his championship assault in Pro-Am back up to speed, as he's got to try and battle with quite a few drivers, including some of those that are around him. Other drivers have really got an opportunity, but Raimondi is in 7th position now because Dan Lenson has got past him. But Pete Barnier trying to close in to Tim Muris in the number 9, as James Warren makes a little bit of a mistake coming through the final corner. New Holland, as does George Boothby. Both cars run wide. Is Niels van der Kerkhout really in the slipstream? He goes to the left of Sem Spenkelink. Does the Ferrari have the power? It does, going round the outside of turn 1. And Niels van der Kerkhout gets a little love tap from behind, courtesy of Sem Spenkelink. But Niels van der Kerkhout absolutely nailed that, and he gets another tap from Spenkelink. That's, when you have 2 Dutchmen having a little bit of a quarrel, it does get rather heated. And I know that from my karting exploits in the Benelux region, and also internationally speaking. But Sem Spenkelink really used the torque of that Ferrari, the pure power of the 3.9-litre twin-turbo V8. The Cavallino Rampante definitely was rampant, going round the outside of Niels van der Kerkhout.
Yeah,
sorry,
absolutely.
Sem Spenkelink.
I mean, yeah.
You see, I got that. I did a Murrayism there. Take a breath, mate. Let your brain get some oxygen and crack on.
But yeah, Sem was really. I knew when Kerkhout got round him on the brakes there, it was a great move from him. But he had to be very careful, because through that series of turns, there is always the danger of the cutback from the car you've just overtaken. And he did a really good job to hold Sem back, even though Sem actually nudged him and let him know how close he was. And if he hadn't have closed the door, there's no question that Porsche would have been back past. The drive out of the corners from the Porsche is absolutely phenomenal, and he was carrying a lot more speed through those corners, because to get that move done, Kerkhout had to go that little bit deeper on the brakes and just put himself slightly offline. But we see Boothby now putting Warren under a lot of pressure, and he's going to be tight in that slipstream. But this is Ferrari against Ferrari. There is no advantage other than the slipstream at this moment in time. But the straight's not going to be long enough, I don't feel, for Boothby to get alongside, but he's going to be looming very large in Warren's mirrors, and Warren's going to have a lot of pressure to soak up right now, and he's going to be sweating already, and we're only 10 minutes into this race.
Well, I've definitely been perspiring quite a bit during qualifying, because that's full throttle and full send. As we now head back to Christian Malsharek from Odyssey Racing in the number 46. He's the meat in the Italian meat and a Germanic bread sandwich at the moment, because you've got an Audi in front, that's Killer Scepter, and then you've got Aaron van Drooinen, who's made some good headway, as Malsharek looking up the inside of the Audi, And this is Ingolstadt versus Maranello with Affalterbach just behind. We're coming up to finishing the first sixth of this race, a 60-minute race here at the Circuit de Catalunya Barcelona with Alex Goldschmidt and Steve Proudly on commentary, and Steve also doing camera work, and such fine camera work as it is, as always, mate. But Malshrek really showing his credentials, you know, a real-life racer in his own right, as all that Ferrari nearly went sideways as he absolutely walloped the curb. I think that was coming through probably one of the further corners, probably Kamsa or maybe something like that. But Van Druynen looking up the inside, that's going through Lacaixa. The Mercedes not having as much torque, but the Evo version of the Mercedes-AMG GT3 has about 100 pounds-feet of torque more than the previous generation. Well, it has 50 pounds-feet of torque more. And what's more, it's also a further 35 kilos lighter as we go back to the battle between Warren and Boothby. We go on board with Warren. Boothby was right up his exhaust pipes. Now, there we are with the 666 from Slimax Motorworks. Boothby getting a real good run down this long start-finish straight up the inside through into Elf. Does Boothby make it through? He does. He doesn't go as audacious as good friend Niels van der Kerkelt, but Warren letting Boothby know he's there. That was brilliant between the pair. Great racing respect, great racing room given, and we are only still on lap number 7 of this race, Steve. Wow.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, Boothby, to be honest, he's taken longer than I thought he would to get past. No disrespect to James Warren, but we know what James Boothby is capable of. But great move when it needed to be done. He managed to get that move done, held it late on the brakes, slightly offline again, but managed to defend the position. Now he's going to work on closing that that gap up to Banny, which is it's around about a second, I believe. Yeah, a couple of seconds. So he's got a bit of work to do, and it would appear there's some back markers in the way as well. At least one, so he's got those to negotiate around. There's actually 2 back markers in the way now, but yeah, Banny's getting off up the road. More importantly, Spenkelink as well in second place. He's dropped 1 second away from Van der Kerkelt now, so Van der Kerkelt now he's got clear of Spenkelink. He's stretching his legs, he's extending that gap slightly, and knowing George Boothby like we do, I think the gap that he will be watching is the gap to first place.
Yes, and it's currently showing that it's a roundabout from Boothby up to Van der Kerkelt, who's now leading, and has extended that gap. That was 0.8. It's now over 1.4 seconds as Niels van der Kerkelt using that pure power of that V8 twin turbo engine in the Ferrari. 1.4 seconds. Sem Spenkelink, I think, gave a bit of a warning shot, but with the way, I mean, Chris Pinchbeck has put in the chat, good old Pinchy, says, definitely seems like a mid-engine track, eh? Laugh out loud. Well, yes, Pinchy, we kind of agree with you on that one, because when you look at centre of gravity and also the weight distribution on the cars, if it's mid-engined and it's a track like this, as we now see the likes of Michael Hartmann battling away, this is for second in semi-pro, because he's got Patrick Bunce, the initial points leader after the first 2 rounds. And that is Klaas Vester, I think they're actually... Now, this is not only for battle in second position, because Giorgio Raimondi is still in 7th, and he's less than a second behind Dan Lenson in the 31 Ferrari, as you've got 3 Ferraris closing out the top 6, with Boothby being the highest place. But Michael Hartmann trying to now close on Klaas Vester, and if he can get past Vester quickly, he can actually get a little bit of a cushion between himself and Patrick Vance, who really showed a great turn of pace in the opening round of the season quite a few weeks ago. And this is where things get rather interesting, because it's not just about getting bragging rights in Sim Pro in terms of the classification, but also for those that are in Pro and going, yeah, I think I might go Pro. I might go into Pro next season. It's a very good point, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you know, everyone starts somewhere, so whenever they come into the league, however, they're usually classified on the hot lap server, you know, so these guys have taken part in a hot lap server. They will have been divided up based on lap times into Pro and Pro-Am and Am and Rookie. And, you know, obviously you're always looking to improve, and the best way to improve is to look at the man ahead of you and look at the class ahead of you. So you're always wanting to get out of that class that you're currently in. Which is what they'll all be doing, as we just looking at a couple of cars now into turn 1, certainly looking to move up and to sort of stay in that top 10. It's It's turning into an interesting race, this one, Alex. There's lots of battles throughout the field. We're not struggling to find little groups of cars here and there, although the front guys are now sort of spread out a little bit. I think those back markers have come in between a few of them, and it's sort of put a bit of a gap, around about a second to 2 seconds on average between them. Where all the action is now is the back end of the top 10 and the midfield, it would appear.
Yep, Christian Malschrek still battling away with Adam van Droonen, but Matas Marques has been closing in on them, and Marques has been doing a very good job. He's actually quicker by nearly 4 tenths on van Droonen and over 6 tenths on Malschrek as we go back to this battle for 14th, and also the battle for make that second, third and fourth in Pro. Well, it's not going to be second, third and fourth. It's actually going to be second and third in the Pro-Am classification, because you've got Klaas Wester, Michael Hartmann as Vance sends it up the inside of the 84 Audi. Oh, and Michael Hartmann gets turned around. And that was not what the 84 Audi wanted right there and then. He qualified down in 15th position. He is now rolling around with a tumbleweed, having been turned around. I think Patrick Vance saw the gap there, but it wasn't going to be a case of can I make it through. But Raimondi in the VR Motorsport 58 Audi up into 7th, having qualified 8th. I think the Audi of this driver is really putting a bit of the frighteners on the likes of Lenson. Warren could also be thinking, how is that Audi so rapid around this circuit? And Raimondi is running in the 144.4s.
Yeah, absolutely. He's doing a really good pace. I mean, that's the same pace as everybody around him and ahead of him. In fact, the guys behind at the moment, most of them are in the 45s. There is only one man that's in the 43s, and his last lap was only just in the 43s, and that's Van der Kekelt, who's got to the front of the field, and he's making hay while the sun shines, shall we say, and he's stretching that gap out. He's now got that gap to 2.5 seconds, so in the matter of a couple of laps, he's extended it by another full second. So he's doing what he needs to do. He'll be very aware that the guys will be trying to chase him down. He's going to want some sort of a cushion for when it comes to the pit stops, to allow for any errors, mistakes, any just slightly longer stops than the other guy, strategy changes. So he's doing what he can do now, and he's trying to build a cushion to when they come to make their pit stops, which won't be far away, to be fair, Alex. As we know, we get some of them coming in. They've all got to make that one mandatory pit stop. As you can see in the timing tower, all the drivers have got a number 1 in an amber column next to their car race number, and that denotes that they all still have that one pit stop to make. So we will start to see some of the guys coming in. I believe the pit window is any time they like, so they can take that pit stop, get rid of it, and get it done. And we have seen in the past in some races where they've got rid of it in the first 10 minutes of a race, which is an unusual tactic, but it has worked for some drivers.
Yeah, and also you can throw it. You can throw it the other way around as well, Steve. You know, some drivers might decide, well, I'm going to run for as long as I humanly dare. Maybe have about 10 litres worth of fuel back in the car. Maybe go in with 45 minutes completed. Maybe might even put a new set of tyres on there. But and that can really depend on the confidence of the individual and also the car beneath them as well. And that's where things make it really, really interesting. You could have one driver that thinks, oh yeah, I'm going to go for it. And then you've got others that will go, I'm not going to chance it. These tyres still feel good. As now, Matas Marques is going for 10th position. And that is on Malschrek. As, now Van Droonen nearly had Yannick Valenduk up the inside. As they go down the hill, they're going through. And this is where things are going to get rather interesting. They're now going up into the middle part of the circuit, and you could just see that Malschrek's just holding on for dear life, and that Lexus going through Kamsa is looking rather planted, and Marques looking a bit braver on the inside curbing. He's got Alan van Droonen just behind, then Yannick Valenduk, because now Marques looking to send it up the inside, and Malschrek gives him enough room to do so, going through like Aixa, but the Ferrari has the legs on. He's going to keep it around the outside. Marques nearly gets nearly loses out there, slots neatly back in behind the number 46 of Christian Malschrek from Slovakia in the Odyssey racing car. We now go on board the rear. Now you can see that that rear wing has got a little bit of scuffing on it, as has the top part of the where normally the aerodynamic front, the aerodynamic rear wing would be on that car. But Malshrek really gave us a defensive masterclass, showing there against Matas Marquez. And I think Marquez has just got to wind things up a little bit more now. They've got the long straightaway, and Malshrek nearly has Marquez going up the inside of him. And Marquez also, well, it's an inter-Slovakian duel between these two, and it is Ferrari versus Lexus, a 3.9 litre V8 twin turbo versus a 5.0 litre naturally aspirated V8. And it seems like that Lexus under the slipstream is looking rather competitive.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the Lexus, it looks, like you said earlier on the previous lap, it looks well planted. He looks to be carrying that bit more corner speed than the Ferrari ahead of him. He seems to be able to just chuck it through the corners, and we can see him closing up, you know, not so much in the braking zone, but just by carrying more mid-corner speed. Again there, look how close he's getting and really applying the pressure, and that Ferrari's definitely holding him up. I think if he's the cork in the bottle, and if that Lexus manages to get past him as we're coming back round again to the braking zone, let's see if he can do it again, but it's not looking like he's close enough this time. But it is a real traffic jam behind, and the guys are all squabbling over positions. We just see the Lexus there make a very easy mistake to do when you're following so close, slightly unsighted off the track, and now that gap's just extended out a little bit, but I have no doubt that the Lexus is going to close it up within the next few corners. I think the speed differential is that great between these cars at the moment. He's just finding the right place to manage to get past. As we see him, the Lexus is struggling ever so slightly at the moment. One of the guys opting to do a pit stop there, two of the guys diving in.
It, yeah, Van Drooyen and Valenduk yet now in the pits with just over 38.5 minutes. It was a mistake from Marquez going through into La Caixa before the Monk Sabadell corner. That's where he lost an absolute fortune of time. So those are the first two drivers within probably the top 15 that have pitted. Marcel V has not moved out of the pit lane. That Bentley was terminally damaged, and he got on so well, well up into the order, and it was just such a shame with him and Nard Cox. And at the moment, I'm just keeping an eye on where Nard Cox is at the moment in 35, and he's currently a lap down, and a lap and 31 seconds down. He's in 36th position. I think that Porsche had quite a lot of damage. There is Dan Lenson, Giorgio Raimondi, the Pro-Am lead, the semi-pro leader. He's fighting with the big boys, and I think that is just Simon Zimmerman that I think they've got past in the Nissan. Yeah, Dan Lenson, I think, he's getting a bit worried that he's now got some of Neuberg and Donner's finest customer racing product right behind his rear diffuser and his closing. Raimondi that time around, seems to be really quick. I mean, Lenson, a 1:45.693. Raimondi over 2.5 tenths of a second quicker and closing.
Yeah, absolutely. He's having a cracking race, isn't he? And going back to the guys that have just taken that early pit stop, as we see Van der Kekelt is taking the pit stop as well. He's in the pits currently, so the race leader has dropped into the pits to get that one out of the way. But it was almost a no-brainer, as we said. It was getting a bit of a traffic jam within those guys, and so to take your pit stop at that point was probably the sensible thing to do. Hopefully you're going to score the undercut if they carry on battling, and maybe just maybe when they've if I can say any more maybes, when they've done their pit stop, they will jump that traffic jam, shall we say, but we will have to wait and see.
Yeah, well, there'll be plenty of maybes of what's going to happen over the course of this season, because nobody knows what is going to happen in the next 36 minutes. Michael Hartmann has now pitted as well, so he'll want to get that one out of the way and let the rest of them. And Van der Kekelt coming out, he'll be outside of the top 15, but it will be a case of when do the others blink? What has Spenklink got in the tank in that Porsche? You then also got Clayton Barney in the 85 McLaren. You've got Boothby, who's now up into P3. I think Boothby might want to do a bit of the grand undercut, go longer, go further, see how far he can push that tank of fuel in that Ferrari and get towards the sharp end, because okay, it wasn't the greatest qualifying session. Let's be honest. He's been at the sharp end of the grid, and normally it's been him and Niels. It's been the Boothby and Van der Kekelt show here on SRHI for the first 3 rounds of the championship. But Sem Spenkelink has definitely said, look, guys, you might be the top 2 in the lead of this, but what this has allowed is that Sem Spenkelink has a ripe opportunity, because Marcel V is not taking any part in this race. Terminal damage to the Bentley. Spenkelink now has an opportunity to get himself into the top 3 as of this race, and if he does a really good job, you know, he could break away along with Boothby and Van der Kerkelt in the championship standings. And the permutations of what's happening here is Slapek runs wide in the 747. That allows Wegman to go up the inside, and there, here comes Tim Nybo up. So that just goes to show how quickly one mistake, especially through the chicane, the RACC chicane, and then going through into New Holland, you can lose 2 positions like as quickly as a snap of the fingers as the number 747 of Sebastian Slapek. But there was a moment there for Tim Nybo. We're back to the battle for what is now 10th position as Patrick Vance and Benjamin Simmers. Vance looked rather racy up the inside there. But I think the biggest bone of contention with semi-pro is I wonder if a protest is going to go in from Michiel Hutman against Patrick Vance, because that was a gap going through into Lokaitsa that I think that was a gap that was rather quickly closing.
Yeah, absolutely. It was close battling, and you know the touch was unfortunate, but inevitable when the drivers were taking the lines they were. But you never want to see positions swapped, as we see once they're going down the inside. But he's again run wide. He's not going to be able to defend that position, and he's also going to come under pressure from that Porsche behind. Although I think that Porsche behind is actually potentially a lap down. So, but yeah, you never want to see positions swapped via a stewards meeting. But it has to, if it has to happen, it has to happen.
I think that is. Let's just have a look. That is Nard Cox, I believe.
Yeah, I was
now
Klaus
Vester. Oh, that was a very bumpy ride going through the pit lane entrance. Hard on the brakes for the Ferrari. Patrick Vance now also pits. But Dan Lenson, look, that gap between him and Giorgio Raimondi again has closed. It was, I think, a couple of laps ago, just up higher than half a second. And yeah, Raimondi was 4 tenths quicker again. I mean, Raimondi's got absolutely alien-esque pace in that Audi.
Yeah, he was about 8 tenths back, Alex. I think literally only a lap ago, so that would add up with the mathematics on your 4 tenths gained. So he's really putting that Ferrari under pressure. He just needs to keep a level head. He needs to just keep applying the pressure and not do anything silly. Just stay large in the mirrors. As we've seen so many times, the overtakes come from the driver in front making the mistake, and that mistake is forced by the pressure you put them under as the car behind. So that's what he needs to do. He just needs to keep applying the pressure. Don't get me wrong, it is so difficult driving that close behind somebody for a long period of time. It's harder to put yourself in that position and be in that position than it is to be the guy in front. But if he wants that position, if he wants that promotion into the pro class for next season, this is what he has to do, and this is what the racecraft, as we call it, that's what he needs to develop. And driving close, putting pressure on the driver in front, is what it's all about.
Patrick Vance has just got a stop-go 30 for speeding in the pit lane. That's a real shame for the the semi-pro leader. Now, class points are obviously not reflective of whether it's very different in how the points in terms of what we've got. Patrick Vance is actually now that's Joris Everleens in the Dynamic Motorsports number 17 that's had a moment, and that looks like Alexis has just got past. But then Niels van der Kerkelt, he's now trying to get past the 313. That's Patrick Treffers in the Nissan, and that was threading the eye of the needle there, Niels, going through Europe car. A very clean manoeuvre, but also the fact is that Treffers knew that Boothby was, as Chris Hill dives into the pit lane, that was nearly an in Mercedes moment there for the Honda. But Chris Hill doing very well at the minute. Yeah,
but do you know what this is, Alex? This is... I think this is Boothby playing the tactical game, because, as we know, Boothby still hasn't made his pit stop yet, has he? He's currently in third place, Van der Kerkel, as we've seen, made his pit stop, and at the moment he's got some clear track in front of him, but he's been having to battle, which is going to hold him up. You know, he's way down now in 17th. A few moments ago he was in 20th. You know, he's having to battle, and that's going to be costing him time. If Boothby, Spenkelink, we know Spenkelink from previous rounds will pit as late as possible. If they pit late and come back out into clear air, they could very well get the undercut on Kerkel, because he wasn't that far up the road. And it could be Kerkel's maybe made a tactical blunder. I've been wrong before. I hope I'm wrong this time. I don't want to put the mockers on it, as it were, as we say in Yorkshire. But you know, Kerkel, I think he's playing the weaker tactical game at the moment. I think the other guys have got the stronger game, especially if the likes of Boothby, Spenkelink, Banny, you know, if they've all been carrying the fuel. Although saying that, Spenkelink now is in the pits. Yeah, because I mean, if they were carrying fuel to go long, obviously that would explain why maybe they just didn't quite have that pace at the beginning of the race to go with Kerkel. Spenkelink maybe didn't have the pace because he was carrying that bit more fuel. But when he's come into the pits now, he's going to have to put less fuel in.
Yeah, class. Looks like Scepter and Malsharek Yoribaka in the pit lane right now. And to be honest with you, Steve, I mean, I've been looking at Niels van der Kerkel's lap times. He's running on the 1:44.8. How about across the line again? 1:44.1. So that car is burning off fuel, and that is picking up pace as Giorgio Raimondi still unable to get past Dan Lenson. But Raimondi actually, because the overall points for the class is currently 8 points behind Patrick Vance, and Vance's race has gone Pete Tong, as we say down here in the south, rather rapidly, because he's on 15 points. Tim Kroll, who's had the disconnect. This could mean that Giorgio Raimondi will be right on the back bumper in terms of the semi-pro championship behind Patrick Vance, and that's really a mouth-watering prospect after this round here when we go to the next competitive round on Sim Racing Hub International. And then Lenson releases Raimondi on the 19th lap of this race. Boothby has pitted, Clegg Barney, James Warren, Dan Lenson. Now the strategic, fast-paced chess game that is sports car racing GT3 action well and truly underway. Niels van der Kerkel is 2.6 seconds ahead of Sam Spenkelink, so the Ferrari has the legs on the Porsche 911 GT3R from 2019. And the way that Van der Kerkel has been winding that car up to volume number 11, in the words of Spinal Tap, he's now on an absolute flyer, is Niels van der Kerkel. And people know that when they see Van der Kerkel's livery, they need to get out of the way rather sharpish, as the Giorgio Raimondi fan club now going into thanks to Rezi on the YouTube chat. And Raimondi is on lap number 18, and who would have thought this, even with not all of the pit stops done, with Raimondi and Arwin Nam and Ron Eiserif, the top three at the moment. Two of them are from semi-pro, and Raimondi's had an absolute stormer. I think Dan Lenson was absolutely petrified that that Audi at one point could have actually got past him on track.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm just going to say one thing for Rezi JJ now in the YouTube chat. Let's go to our leader, Raimondi.
Camera shots aplenty there, Mr. Bradley. Well timed, my friend. Well timed. But, you know, he's been showing really good consistency. And that is the biggest thing. Now he's had his 15 seconds of fame as the Audi now gets sharpish on the brakes, but what he doesn't want to do is to exceed that 50km/h speed limit, because otherwise, as Patrick Vance found out, that could be a stop-go 30, and that could put his race in jeopardy with well, not just the top 10, but also maybe for the potential class leaders. Dimitri Schenk in the number 8 Honda has now pitted. Arwin Nam has now pitted. So Ron Eiserif is the only driver out of the top 23 with 26 minutes to go to still not pit so far. This is where myself and Steve are just hoping that someone rolls a dice and we find out what goes on. And Rezi says, well, he's a very experienced guy. Very true. And he'll know when to push. And now Isolif now pits. Now, as they say, on the Oki, game on.
Yeah, absolutely, game on, because Boothby is round about 5-6 seconds off Kekelt at the moment, maybe 7 at a push. Definitely gained time in the pits. I think Kekelt has lost, although he's hung on to what is potentially the lead of the race, but he's lost out to his challengers, which are Spenkelink and Boothby. Spenkelink only 1.5 seconds behind him now, which is closer than he's been for a long time, as we've just seen the leaderboard updating now, and Boothby a further 5 seconds back. So yes, Boothby's about 6.5 seconds off that lead, and I've said it before, I'll say it again, Boothby will have his eye on that lead. He's got 25 minutes to go, and anybody would say that that's a tall order to make up all that time. Never say never at Sim Race Hub International with George Boothby behind the wheel. He will be challenging, he'll be doing as much as he can to get that Ferrari hustle round as fast as he can. Spenkelink doing a fantastic job, it has to be said, in that Porsche. The gap was round about just over 2 seconds, so as much as Kekelt's been really putting the hammer down, I think some of the traffic's been getting in his ways a little bit, and it's allowed Spenkelink to close the gap as we see it come down another 10th.
Yeah, very true. 24 minutes and 25 seconds on the clock remaining. George Boothby very much trying to do his level best, but Giorgio Raimondi, I think, has been my driver of the evening. The semi-pro driver.
He's fighting with Banny.
Well, he's actually that was an off-track. That was getting past, and I don't know. I think he tried for the outside. He ran wide there. The first instinctive thing from me, if that was me being Raimondi, I would let Barney have the place back. From our own experiences within other communities, including SimSport racing, obviously with the clash of the communities, 4 races that were absolutely dynamite, I must add, and fantastic entertainment when I got the opportunity to watch them, because for those that know, Steve, you know how busy I am these days. Raimondi's just been absolutely flying. That Audi is actually giving the McLaren a bit of a proper fight here at Barcelona.
Yeah, absolutely, and I believe that Raimondi just went wide defending. He already had that position. It was Banny that was attacking him, so I don't think he does need to give the position back. Sorry to disagree with you, Alex, but I think I just saw that it's a little bit longer, and yeah, he was defending, so I think it's all fair. But I was more not surprised. That's the wrong word to use, but impressed that Raimondi now is battling with Banny, who was up at the sharp end of this race for long enough. So he's doing a fantastic job, and he's in a very, very solid 5th place at the moment, and his pit stops rolled out very well for Amandi. But the battle at the front, I think the guys are all currently showing that they're on a faster, everyone except for Kekelt is showing that they're on to beat their personal best laps in this race so far. Amongst those is Spenkelink, who's got that gap down to less than a second now, it has to be said.
Boothby's also been winding the wick up on the number 666 side Max Motorworks Ferrari. The gap between him and Spenkelink is now just under 6 seconds. So I think we're in for an absolute howitzer. You can see how quick that Porsche. Now, the question that I need to ask Steve, who do you think? I think someone's taken on tyres, and I don't think it's Van der Kekelt. Van der Kekelt, I think, that Porsche, once it burns off fuel, is an absolute rocket ship.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's difficult to say regarding the tyres, because they have all come out of the pits somewhere there or thereabouts, so you would like to think that all the pit stops were of a similar length, and if they take tyres, they are stationary for around about 30 seconds. Now, if they just take fuel, depending how much fuel they put in, the stop can be as short as a couple of seconds for a splash and dash, or 7-8 seconds, and you pretty much got a full tank put in. So there is a big difference in pit stop times between tyres, but the difference is Kekelt pitted a lot earlier than these guys. So has he taken new tyres, or did he not take new tyres but he's lost a lot of time in the traffic? I don't know. If he finishes on the podium, maybe we will find out in the interviews at the end. But at the moment, Spenkelink has got that gap down. As you can see, you don't need a time. He's there, he's in the slipstream, he's putting pressure on Kekelt, he'll be looming large in the mirrors, and I'm just going to blow my own trumpet here, Alex. As I said in the build-up to this race, Spenkelink gets faster as the race goes on, and he's proving that point tonight.
He's putting a scare on Niels van der Kekelt with just under 21 minutes remaining on the clock here for round 4 of 9 of the SRHI TV GT3 Sprint Championship. We head to Zolder in just a couple of weeks' time on the 13th of April. And there, Van der Kerkhout going defensive. One of the Lexuses getting out of the way. Spanklink takes the title line through New Holland. And that allows... so they do... Okay, Pip in the chat says mandatory tyres, though, on the pit stop. Okay, that's understandable. But I would imagine because Sam Spanklink went a little bit longer than Niels van der Kerkhout, he hasn't had to put so much fuel in the car. He might have just maybe put enough in there to compensate, and then maybe put that safeguard in, because I've seen it before. Super Saturday, Alu Gobi, she was running in the Super Trofeo race. Final lap, she was lifting and coasting. One of the things that you don't want to have happen, whether it's a 30-minute sprint race, a 60-minute sprint race with a mandatory tyre stop, the biggest thing that you need to do is make sure you've got enough fuel in that car, because I've seen it where people have lost 5 or 6 positions because coasting on fumes can cost you a significant amount of time.
Yeah, absolutely. It can cost a lot of time, but hopefully these guys are experienced enough that they've got enough fuel in. As you said, we've all seen it. We've seen very experienced guys run out of fuel, especially when they're just pushing that bit harder and just using that fraction of a litre more per lap, and it disappears before you know it. But whatever has happened and whatever has happened in the pit stops, Spanklink has come out on fire. He's really putting Kerkhout under pressure, and let's not forget how when Kerkhout got past him in the first part of this race, as they go side by side in contact, let's not forget how Kerkhout stretched that gap very, very quickly in the opening parts of this race. So something has changed on that setup on the Porsche or the Ferrari. Something is either giving Spanklink the inspiration to drive that bit harder, or something is holding Kerkhout back. And at the moment, the lap times, I would say it's Kerkhout that is struggling rather than Spanklink's got a lot faster, because Kerkhout's lap times are down in the sort of mid 44s, high 44s. Spanklink, when he was catching Kerkhout, was in the high 43s, low 44s, so he was really, really quick. So it's all to play for, and it's going to be difficult for that Porsche to find a way around the Ferrari. But if he keeps applying the pressure, he's got just under he's got 18.5 minutes to do it. So it's Kerkhout's going to have a lot of pressure to soak up, and if they carry on battling, they'll have a certain Mr. Boothby closing up soon if they're not careful.
Well, Boothby he's been running at the same sort of lap times as Van der Kerkhout, so I'm going to be completely honest, the gap's now gone up from 5.8 to 6.1 seconds, so Boothby has just lost another 3 tenths. I think Boothby's out of the running for the victory. I hate to say it, because Spanklink is now really up close and personal with Niels van der Kerkhout. It's not going to be a case of if, it's going to be a case of when the Ferrari gets passed by the Porsches, and with taking more apex like that from Niels van der Kerkhout, that's only going to spur Sam Spanklink to try and get past him, because that Ferrari, okay, it's got wide haunches, as now you can see Spanklink is just waiting. He knows where to put that Porsche, and he's just going to make van der Kerkhout guess. And now that's a brilliant move if you can pull that off. A little bit of a touch between the pair, a little bit of rubbings racing, and that has given the advantage. But Sam Spanklink keeps it pinned round the outside of the Ferrari into Europe car, and Spanklink has to fall back behind Niels van der Kerkhout. A little bit of a touch there. I think that is more just a bit of rubbings racing, but that was great. That was great counter-attacking from both drivers, and also great composure. But the Porsche now in the slipstream. Van der Kerkhout pulled it round the outside of Elf, going into the first few laps of this race on Sam Spanklink. And this is where things are going to kick off. I think Spanklink, if he gets past in the next 2 to 3 laps on Van der Kerkhout here, Steve, I think that Porsche will start pulling away from the Ferrari, and there will be absolutely nothing that Van der Kerkhout can do about it. However, in the meantime, Boothby has closed in by 8 tenths of a second at the last split. We're just waiting for him to go into the next split. 5 seconds is the gap. So I retract my previous statement on George Boothby, because if they keep on battling for the next 5 minutes, Boothby will be with them within 3.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you know, this is when they start battling now. The battle has commenced, and this is what's going to cost them time, as we see Kerkhout running really deep in there but managing to keep it tidy. Let's just ride on board with this front splitter cam of Spenglink at the moment, because this is going to show us how much he can close up in the corners. Because for me, it's almost looking like he's got more grip than that car in front. It's looking like he's able to carry more corner speed. It's turning in better. I mean, Kekelt is really struggling for those apexes, it seems, on some of those tighter corners. That Ferrari is not turning in as well as this Porsche is. This Porsche is turning on at tuppence and really getting the power down. He's really closing on the Ferrari. He's applying the pressure, but it is going to be difficult to overtake. But this is what Spenglink needs to do. This is what we want him to do, and this is what we expect him to do. So he gets another good run now through the final corner. He's closing up on the exit even before he's really getting to take advantage of the slipstream, and this is as close as he's ever been. But will the Porsche have the legs on the Ferrari? We will see in a few seconds.
Once again going through into the right-hander at turn 1 here at the circuit. Spenglink nearly looked towards the... Well, he was close towards the outside. We've got a quarter of this race remaining. There's Boothby, 4.7 seconds behind. But I'm looking at the lap times here. Boothby, he needs to have very much a bit more pace in that car, because he's half a second quicker than Spenglink. Well, over 5.5 tenths. So Spenglink trying to go up the inside of Van der Kekelt. Van der Kekelt's been running in the high 144.9s. There's Spenglink. He's trying to put it around the outside, try and get the cut back in. That's through turn number 3. And Chris Pinchbeck has just put in, this is like Max and Lewis. The Ferrari has lost the grip by the look of things. I think you're spot on there, Chris Pinchbeck, because this Ferrari's got a lot more torque. And one of the good things about this circuit, the Porsche has got 525 Newton meters of torque. But the added benefit is it looks like the polystyrene barriers have had an absolute muddering.
Look in the background though, Alex. Look in the background. Who is that?
Boothby.
Closing.
Got the Jaws music playing?
Absolutely,
yeah,
he's closing 3.5. It was only 2 laps ago. That was at 6 seconds. So that gap is tumbling, and this is going to be a three-way battle, which puts a little bit more pressure on Spenglink to try and get this job done. Even though he's got over 13.5 minutes left on the clock, he needs to get that job done before Boothby starts coming and applying pressure to him, because if that happens, that may just give Kekelt the breathing room that he needs to bring that first place home. So Spenglink needs to up the ante. He needs to get that Porsche into overdrive, if in fact there is any more drive left. I think he's using just about all of it now, but he's really close. Again, he's in that slipstream. He's getting a fantastic exit out of that final corner, but the Porsche just does not have the legs. The slipstream allows it to stay with Ferrari, but does not allow it to get alongside and get past.
There was a moment there for Niels van der Kekelt that was going through into the entrance of Renault, and Spenglink using the absolute maneuverability of that Porsche. It's very quick in the twisty stuff. And Chris Pinchbeck says that my money's looking good, Steve. Laugh out loud. Well, we'll wait and find out. We've still got just under 13 minutes to go, and Boothby is now 2.8 seconds behind. So not too far off my guesstimate of Boothby possibly being within 3 minutes of the... when it was 15 minutes to go. So we have another 39 seconds. I'm going to be slightly out of my guess, but, you know, not a bad attempt there. You can sometimes get a bit of an idea. And again, now, Kekelt and Spenglink, they are losing an absolutely inhumane amount of time, as they have lost over 1.4 seconds.
Oh, there we go.
Spenglink up the inside. He goes up the inside and manages to get... He was alongside... He was well within his rights to do that move.
That was a good move.
There was that was very robust as well. And I think Van der Kekelt knew that I said it earlier, it was going to be a case of not if, it's going to be a case of when.
To be fair,
for
me, Alex, that was a rough move, but go back a few laps and we had a bit of a rough defence from Kekelt, so I think that's 1-1, to be honest. I don't think Kekelt can have any room for argument there, because his defence previously was a little bit rough. He tapped the Porsche as it went past, forcing it to lose brake traction and have to back off. So I think that's 1 apiece, and you reap what you sow, as they say.
Well, as they say, one good turn deserves another, but Van der Kekelt now using that ultra-high torque value of that 3.9 litre V8 twin turbo of that Ferrari. But Boothby, right, okay, this is where it gets interesting, because, well, Mr. Pinchbeck has agreed, Spenglink, awesome move. I mean, we've seen that in the Alpine A110S and GT4 with SimSport Racing. Now we're seeing him fighting with the big boys, and some regular names in the sim grid as well. I mean, Van der Kerkelt and Boothby are partnered in the UGO 47 McLaren 720S in the Sprint Cup. And, you know, they're not exactly slow hands. Let's be completely honest about that one. We've got just over 10 3/4 minutes still to go on the clock. Boothby, his last lap, he's been running consistently in the low 1:44.2s as Dave Jr. now trying to close on Benjamin Simmons. This is Mercedes versus Mercedes, and actually the two highest placed Mercedes out of the field, with Anthony Terhorst down in the 69 after his drive-through penalty after the start procedure infringement. This is a battle for 14th position, as Simmons is now losing time, hand over fist to Michael Huttmann, who rounds out the top two in semi-pro. But Boothby has been running, last lap from him, a 1:44.280, and that gap is coming down well and truly between the three of them. They're getting, now there is Boothby. Now Van der Kerkelt has dropped time because Spenkelink has got away whilst the sun shines, and Boothby is 1.2 seconds behind. They're all running in the 1:44. Spenkelink has now got the light at the end of the tunnel that he needs, Steve, and he's just put in a 1:44.178.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that, as we said a few laps ago, Spenkelink needed to get that job done before Boothby caught them. Kerkelt now, he's got a bit of breathing room from Boothby. He'll be able to get his foot down, but we've seen he is struggling. So that gap might not tumble as fast as it was, but I still think Boothby's going to catch him before the end, as we can see visibly the gap coming down every corner now. Spenklink's just stretching the legs. I think, barring any mistakes from Spenkelink, it is now his race to lose. He's just got to keep his head down, keep putting the laps in, and just, you know, bring it home. But I think Kerkelt now, rather than looking forward, he's potentially looking in his mirror, and Boothby very much closing up on him, and he's going to have Kerkelt under pressure very, very soon, and he's going to be looking to take that number 2 spot on the podium. And for Kerkelt to have led most of that race, potentially in the last 10 minutes, to be demoted from first to third is going to be pretty heartbreaking, but that's racing.
Yeah, very much the case. I mean, looking at the results so far coming into this round, it was a hat-trick of victories for George Boothby. It was a hat-trick of the runner-up spot for Niels van der Kerkelt. Sem Spankelink, a 4th place at the Nürburgring for the opening round, 14th at Misano, and 4th at Silverstone. So he's going to get the opportunity that he needs to be 3rd in the championship after this round. He'll be a lot closer up. 8 minutes and 13 seconds still to go. Sem Spenkelink consistently opening up a gap over Niels van der Kerkelt. He was 0.2 quicker. He bridges the gap to over 1.3 seconds, with Boothby a second behind van der Kerkelt, as Tim Nybo are now battling away with Jordi Bakker. This is for P4 in semi-pro. And what's more, it's 17th on the road. Demian de Keizer in the 15 looks to be a little bit further adrift. And then you've got Ron Eiserif and Tim Muris not too far behind them. But Nybo using the agility of the Audi 5.2 litre V10 naturally aspirated racing engine pulled directly from the road-going counterpart. And that particular car, in its own right, has 552 brake horsepower. And in terms of comparison, it's actually 12 horsepower more than the Lexus. And in terms of the torque, the Audi has a 20 pound-feet of torque advantage, as Nybo absolutely mashes the throttle coming out of the final corner. He's not going to be alongside, as we've got a yellow flag out on the circuit that's now been briefly retracted. But Nybo are looking towards the inside of Jordi Bakker. He gets right up close to the rear bumper of the 99 Lexus, through turn 1 into turn 2, now into the right-hand sweeper, the nigh-on sweeping hairpin here at Renault. Tim Nybo are giving Jordi Bakker something to think about right now, as we've got less than 7 minutes to go.
Yeah, I mean, look, he's down the inside now. He might just get that move done there, and indeed he does. He forwards Bakker out wide. But one thing, that Lexus didn't have a turn of speed down the straight. That was absolutely awesome. The Audi came out the slipstream, had to tuck back into the slipstream, and still was nowhere near when it came to the braking zone. That Lexus was awesome. But drive-through, absolutely gutting drive-through for track limits. So that position, all that hard work is now undone, as we cut back to the leaders. And
Van der Kerkelt
drive through for Van der Kerkelt.
Oh, Van der Kerkelt, his race has gone from bad to worse. Niels van der Kerkhout was 25 points behind George Boothby. And I think George Boothby, now there we go. Van der Kerkhout is going to come out in front of one of the Lexuses. Now he's got. I'm gonna be really, really. I'm not gonna rub this in for Niels, but Giorgio Raimondi is P5, and what's more, the semi-pro leader is closing on Clayton Barney. Raimondi now has a chance to really put the warning shot across the bow in the semi-pro championship, and that will put Patrick Vunst and a few others. Tim Cole not running in this race, obviously due to the unfortunate disconnect. Giorgio Raimondi has 5.25 minutes to try and close up and pass Clayton Barney. And as the late Murray Walker once said, it's one thing to get up close to somebody. It's one thing to get close. It's another thing altogether to try and get past.
Yeah, as we see Kerkhout making a move now past a back marker, but yeah, as you said, that's his race gone from bad to worse after doing some fantastic driving, some good defending, some hard attacking, just generally good all-round driving. But yeah, it happens, and unfortunately a drive-through at this stage in the race is very, very hard to come back from. But it has to be said, one of the drives of the evening for me is not only Spenkelink, but I would say Raimondi, for being that high up in 5th place, and he hasn't had it easy, has he? He's been battling pretty much every single lap. He's never sort of given up pushing, as we've seen. He's closed the gaps down. He lost this position a few laps ago, probably 20 minutes ago after the round of pit stops, but here he is again pushing on, closing that gap down with just 4 minutes left on the clock. It's going to be difficult to see how he's going to get past in the last 2-3 laps, but he's not going to give up. He's going to keep pushing. But meanwhile, Spenkelink, I think, he's out there up front. He's putting the laps in, and he's done an awesome job. He's 2.5 seconds to the good. He'll be watching his lap times. He'll be watching his apexes. He won't be pushing too hard. He's about half a second down currently on his previous best lap, but Boothby behind him is also half a second down on his. So I think basically the boys are, they're pushing as hard as they would like to at this stage in the race, knowing that they're both 1 and 2 on the podium.
Yeah, I think, as I said earlier, George Boothby doesn't need to win every single race as much as he will casually disagree, saying, I want to win every race, but that's what you do. When you race, you want to win. And this is now going to put Sem Spenkelink on the penultimate lap. We're now going to complete lap number 32, so a total of 34 laps in progress. And Matas Marques trying to close in on the Ferrari just up ahead. That looks to be Klaas Vester, so that is a battle for 16th position. And it has been a rather enthralling, entertaining, drama-filled, full-send race here at Barcelona for round 4 out of 9 for GT3 Season 3 for the Sprint Championship. And you can join Steve and Tim Fulbrook next week, which will be the 4th race out of 9 for GT4 Sprint Championship Season 2 at Circuit Zolder in Belgium. In fact, I've visited myself, but only seen the signs for the Michel Valiant Cafe, which is just off of the front entrance for the circuit itself, and that is definitely one on my bucket list. But a lot of great racing still to come. Obviously, the mixed endurance races that we have here on Sim Racing Hub International. 2 minutes to go on the clock. Raimondi fast running out of time to take P4, but he'll still be he'll be a lot further ahead than Michael Hartmann in terms of the semi-pro, as Benjamin Simmers getting pressurized now by Klaas Vester as Matas Marques rounds out the top 16 and has Jordi Barker closing in on him about 1.5 seconds behind. We've got just over 90 seconds to go, Steve. Sem Spenkelink has fired that warning shot to say to Van der Kerkhout and Boothby, saying this isn't a 2-horse race anymore.
Yeah, absolutely. He's just starting the final lap, which, I won't say it won't come soon enough for him. I reckon Spen will have absolutely loved this race. He had some good hard battling, some fantastic driving, and as I said, consistent driving from Sem. He's quick, and he seems to manage to maintain that consistency throughout the whole 60 minutes of the race. If anything, he gets faster as time goes on, as others start to maybe just lose a little bit of concentration, start to struggle with whatever, whether it be tyre grip, tyre pressures, setup, anything. He's the man that always seems to be consistent, and I think this is an absolutely well-deserved win. George Boothby coming home in second place by the looks of it at the moment, barring any last-minute incidents. Again, qualified, was it 7th? So to bring it home now in second place, that's a fantastic drive for him, because I think he would have caught Kekelt. I think he would have got past Kekelt. So great drive from him, fantastic driving from these guys. And James Warren, potentially in third place at the moment, has to be said. James, great drive from him, good position, third on the podium. He'll be getting a nosebleed finishing this high up in the standings, I think.
Yeah, very much the case. Obviously, teammate from PPR Esports, Cody Price, signing out for tonight. James Warren actually has got enough, one class point. He's not scored this season yet, but that's going to be quite a few points for him, and I'm sure that he'll be absolutely happy. But 0 on the clock. Sem Spenkelink from Dark Sky Racing breaks the George Boothby winning streak. It's no longer 4 out of 4, it's 3 out of 4, and Sem Spenkelink does a 360 and then some, celebrating across the line. George Boothby rounds out the top 2 and extends his lead in the championship standings provisionally. James Warren from PPR Esports takes 3rd. Blake Barney takes 4th. But all I'm going to say is Giorgio Ramondi, mille grazie. Forza Italia. 5th place, having qualified 8th overall, and wins the Pro-Am classes. Even Niels decides to go sideways coming out of the final corner. Arwin Nam will take 8th ahead of the number 32. That's Kern Scepter. Aaron van Dreunen looks to be rounding out the top 10. The Pro Simrig Racing, one of the guys that is part of the SRHI infrastructure here. He takes 10th position. Yannick Valenduk from Team Rocket the Fast, he takes 11th as Michael Hartmann takes 12th overall, and then P2 in semi-pro. Dave Jr. from the USA will stay ahead of Klaus Vester and will be the 2nd highest placed Mercedes. Jordi Barker will round out the top 4 in semi-pro, behind Benjamin Simmons. Tim Muris in the number 9 rounds out the top 17th. Demian De Kaiser takes 18th ahead of Ron Isarif. Then we got the 444, Dennis Werkman. Simon Zimmerman, as it's 3 across the line now on. Now, Matas Marques, he was going very slowly. I think he just has got across the line with enough fuel to get past. Chris Hill rounds out the top 30. My goodness me. I did say the 2 words as they are uttered on the oche. It is game on for the championship. Sem Spenkelink has definitely given George Boothby, Niels van der Kekelt, and Marcel V, who unfortunately I think had a disconnect according to the general chat. This now has become a 3-horse race. I think Boothby and van der Kekelt have reason to be worried. Zolder is going to be one of those tracks in 2 weeks' time, Steve, that will really play strength to the Porsche's agility and good prowess through the twisty stuff. It's a very tight and technical circuit in comparison to what we've had here tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Zolder is one of those tracks that does test your willpower somewhat, because to be consistent round there it's one of the harder tracks, I believe, because we've got a couple of the curbs around Zolder that can be a little bit aggressive on the cars. They can throw them left, throw them right, and even absolutely throw you into a 360 spin. We've got some of the corners where you have to take the curbs and just a little bit more to extract the best lap times out, but get too far out and it can ruin a lap as well as make it. So it's going to be mega difficult, and it's a tight track as well. The overtaking, you've got to be so precise, you've got to be decisive decisive. When you go for a move round Zolder, you've got to make sure it's on, otherwise it can end in carnage and tears, and we don't want to see that. But yeah, I mean, fantastic racing tonight. These boys are definitely capable of giving us a good show at Zolder, and I fully expect to see a fantastic battle at Zolder. And I don't know, after tonight I wouldn't even want to say who is my favourite for Zolder, because I think Spenkling, Kekelt, Boothby, Banny, and I'm probably forgetting a few names there as well. There's a hatful of names you could put in there and throw a blanket over all of them and say which one's going to come out on top. I'm not quite sure. I'll just pick out of the dark, because it's these guys are fantastic drivers, and great race this evening.
Going to try and see if we can actually get some words with possibly a couple of the drivers. I'm hoping we can speak to the likes of Sem Spenklink, George Boothby, and James Warren. Hopefully, if they do pop down and see us, we'll try and get them in for an interview. Actually, funnily enough, I'm not going to head down to the interview booth, because I know you're already there before me, Steve. You picked me on that one. I think we've got a driver to speak to, so I'll head down there now. So we're now in the interview booth here after what has been an epic round for it here at Barcelona. And firstly, well, you've broken the streak of George Boothby, Sem Spenkelink. That was a fantastic battle between yourself and Niels in the latter part of the race. It was one good shove deserves another. How are you feeling after your first race victory of season 3?
Ecstatic. I mean, holy shit, what a race. I'm sweating in places I didn't even know I had. I don't know what to say, actually. It was an awesome fight.
I think it hasn't sunk in yet. You know, you were the only driver out of everybody that got sub 143. You know, George qualified down in P7. You had Sem along, you had Niels van der Kekelt alongside you. The Porsche really does show that in you know, the Porsche was really, really good around here. But I think one of the things that I think Steve also picked up on, and a couple of people watching the stream, that Niels was starting to struggle a little bit in the latter stages. I mean, the Ferrari, it's got so much torque going through the corners. The Porsche just had a bit of the legs and the twisty stuff, didn't it?
Yeah, so I actually, when he passed me in the first stint, I was making just too many mistakes. And with the Porsche, with the lack of top speed, if you make a mistake in the last chicane, you're just bait. So he overtook me quite easily. And then I knew that I had to find a way past, but he was really quick. And it's really hard to overtake in the Porsche, so I was like, I have to try the undercut. But it's like he read my mind and went into the pits really early. So then I was like, shit. But decided to do the opposite and go quite long. Until my tires started to drop off and just boxed. Came out quite close to him. I didn't expect that, so that was nice. Only a second or two, I think. So I had much better tires than him. I think his tires just dropped off after, I think, a few laps already. So I really, with my fresh tires, could put pressure on him. And then it was just trying everywhere except for the long back straight where I just didn't have the power. So I knew I had to find some place, and in the end I dummied him, and I was, I don't know, it was just such a great battle.
Steve, have you got any questions for Sem at this particular moment in time? I think I've run out of them.
No, well, one thing to say is obviously congratulations. I am the official chairman of the Sem fan club. I think you're an awesome driver, mate, and I think the attitude of never give up, because we've seen you in the GT4s, GT3s, where you've had some incidents that have not always been your fault, but you are still always there at the end because you just get the car pointing in the right direction and you fight back. So, you know, great driving attitude. But tonight, when you were behind Kekelt and you were battling hard, when Boothby started closing that gap, I sort of said out on the stream that you would probably have one eye on that time, because the pressure was then on you to get that move done before Boothby caught you. Because I think if Boothby had have caught you, then it might have been a different story. Was that on your mind, Boothby catching you at that point?
Yeah, a little bit. I saw him closing in, especially when we were fighting so hard. So I knew I had to get the move done, because if I would have been behind Niels coming up on the straight and not getting a good exit there, then of course George would have caught me there. So I was really happy to get it done when I did.
Yeah, it was a great move. It was a very sort of like you say, you sold the dummy. You forced him to open that door, and once that door was open, I don't think there was nothing was going to close it in your face, because that Porsche was in that gap and down there, and I think it caught Niels very much by surprise as well, because as he tried to close it, obviously there was a little bit of contact, but for me that was just a good fair move. That was it was absolutely fantastic. But great race tonight, Sem. Well done, well deserved, and onwards to Zolder. I mean, what are your thoughts on Zolder for the Porsche? It should be relatively strong round there, do you think?
Yeah, I think it's one of the last short and tacky circuits. So again, one where I have to score some good points, because afterwards it's Spa and Imola, and I'm really not looking forward to that.
So a good qualifying will be important at Zolder, I think, won't it? It's one of those tracks that if you get caught battling midfield or down, it's very hard to come through, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. Quali is important, just like here, where overtaking is hard, maybe even harder in Zolder. So, yeah, I guess there's a fair bit to play for in quali.
Yeah, well done, buddy. Some good points tonight. It doesn't get much better than a win, and like I say, well deserved, mate. So you go off and enjoy the celebrations, however you're going to do that, and we'll see you in the GT4s next week.
Thank you very much, Steve.
Thanks, Sam.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Well, really good to hear from Sam Spankelink, our race 4 out of 9 on Season 3 GT3. Though I think that has to be the highlight of the season so far. A close second was George Boothby's winning streak coming into this round. But I don't think George is going to be entirely disappointed, because we've got, I think in the words of Street Fighter, here comes a new challenger in the form of Sam Spankelink, with now having a race victory after 2 fourth places in the first 3 rounds of this season. Van der Kerkhout, I think, is going to be worried a little bit, but yeah, as Sam said there, he's looking forward to Zolder. He's petrified of Spa and Imola. I think the Porsche will still have a good bit of prowess. I think the Ferraris have been a bit of a track, have been a car that sometimes can actually struggle at Imola a little bit. So the Porsche might come good for Spankelink, but I think everything's just been, as Michael Caine said, you're only supposed to blow the bloody doors off. Well, Niels van der Kerkhout and George Boothby has found that Sam Spankelink has done that tonight, Steve.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Sem, as I said, I sort of joking apart, he's a great driver with a great attitude towards that never give up attitude, as we've seen, and he's not only that, he's very consistent with the lap times, and if anyone can do it, Sem can do it. He's consistently up there, definitely in the top 10 and quite often in the top 6. So a win isn't a surprise for me. I think more surprisingly is that the Porsche has done it rather than Sem, because I think Sem in any other car would potentially be challenging for the win more often. The Porsche is a difficult car to drive, but Zolder is going to be a whole different can of worms, because it's a tighter track, it's twistier. Qualifying, I think qualifying is going to be more important at Zolder than it was here tonight, and potentially it's going to be the most important qualifying session of the whole season, because it's the hardest track to get past people on, I think, especially when you've got this many cars circulating. Also, qualifying is going to be tricky, because it's hard to find space when there's this many cars on a tight track. So I think we might see a little bit of a shake-up again in qualifying at Zolder. I think we might find a few people out of position, some higher up than we might expect, and a couple of guys maybe struggling, who knows, but I'm definitely excited for Zolder.
Yes. And with that being said, that is it for Sim Racing Hub International GT3 action here for Season 3 Round 4 at the Circuit de Catalunya, Barcelona. Sam Spankelink was your winner in GT3, ahead of George Boothby and James Warren from PPR Esports, rounding out the top 3. In semi-pro, it was Giorgio Raimondi, Michael Hutman and Benjamin Simmers. That was your provisional top 3. A lot of talking points after round 4 of the 9-round season. Next week, the 20th of April, join Tim Fulbrook and Steve Proudley for round 4 of the season. It's going to be heading to the Ardennes. Spa-Francorchamps, the 7.004 kilometre circuit, will provide a true test for those production-based GT4 machineries. Steve, as always, fantastic camera work and a pleasure to work alongside you in the commentary box, buddy.
Yeah, thanks, mate. It's always easy with you, buddy. Everything just flows, and with racing like that, we've got no room for complaints, have we? It was easy for the camera work because those guys at the front were just giving me so much to focus on. I wasn't really having to look elsewhere. But no, thank you very much for having me on board again. It's always great to work alongside you, Alex, and I'm looking forward to Zolder, as I said already.
Yeah, a big thank you also go to Sim Sport Solutions, who have provided the broadcasting for tonight for Sim Racing Hub International TV. A big thank you to you all for watching, and we look forward to seeing you in just 2 weeks' time as we head to Circuit Zolder in the Terlammen district of Belgium for round 5. Sem Spankelink, now definitely one to watch this season. Thank you. Good night.